I would say it's like 99% gray, like 0.5% white, 0.5% black. Folks just want to paint the whole shit black and white. The argument that gets to me most that I hear is, well, if technically you compare the stats of militant deaths versus civilian deaths, it's not dissimilar than any other war that has been fought throughout history. To me, I hear that and I don't take that argument forward and think or say, oh, okay, so it's okay then. So continue, business as usual. No, it's the exact opposite of that. It's, oh shit, every single other war that we've ever fought in history, the history of the fucking world, we've been wrong on. And not we, just America, just like we as the human species, we're doing this shit all wrong. That shouldn't give you, it should give you pause. It shouldn't give you reason to continue business as usual. What's up, folks? What's going on? Welcome to the Spun Today Podcast, the only podcast that is anchored in writing, but unlimited in scope. I'm your host, Tony Ortiz, and I appreciate you listening. This is episode 270 of the Spun Today Podcast, and in this episode, I speak about and break down Joe Rogan's latest comedy special, Burn the Boats. I also speak about a new show that I stumbled upon, well, new for me. It's about 4 seasons deep, if I'm not mistaken. But season 1 of the series Industry on HBO. I speak a little about the current political state here in America. And last but certainly not least, the very first official revocation of the prestigious Spun Today Goats Doing Goat Shit honor. Stick around to find out who is being stripped. Pun unintended. But first, before we get into the episode, I wanted to tell you guys about a way that you can help support this podcast if you so choose. Your support means a ton. I really do appreciate it. The folks that take the time to listen, like, comment, share, it is motivating, much appreciated, and helps keep the lights on here in the proverbial Spun Today studios. So here's one quick way that you can help support the show, and then we'll jump right into the episode. Another great way for you to help support the show and also take care of your foundational health is by going to spuntoday.com/support and clicking on my affiliate link for Athletic Greens, aka AG1. 1 scoop of AG1 in your water helps to fill nutrient gaps, promote gut health, and support whole body vitality. Just 1 serving delivers a comprehensive blend of 9 products: a multivitamin, minerals, prebiotics, probiotics, adaptogens, and more, all of which work together for the strongest foundation for better health. I personally take AG1 and really appreciate the peace of mind of knowing that my foundational health bases are covered, even when I know I'm not eating as healthily as I should be. Also, by using my affiliate link at spuntoday.com/support, you will get 1 free year of vitamin D3, as well as 5 AG1 travel packs, absolutely for free. Again, go to spuntoday.com/support and click on the banner for AG1. Joe Rogan's latest comedy special, Burn the Boats. He shot this special live on Netflix on Saturday, August 3rd, 2024, filmed at the Majestic Theater in San Antonio, Texas. And that was one of the most impressive parts of this special, was the fact that it was shot and aired live. A very ballsy move that I'll share the backstory of in a bit, but it's something that I'm enjoying seeing ever since Chris Rock, which if memory serves me right, Chris Rock, after the Will Smith slap and his latest comedy special, that was like the first, or I thought that was the very first live Netflix comedy special. But I believe that when I broke down that comedy special, I forgot to mention Louis CK's special that aired prior to Chris Rock's. And I think that one was live as well. So I don't know which one of those two was exactly the first live special, or if maybe there was another one that I just don't know about. But they were around the same time, and that's when Netflix started attempting these live showings. I think Chris Rock's was by far one of the most anticipated ones, because everyone was just waiting on him to speak about what had happened, I think like a year before at that point, with the slap heard around the world, you know, when Will Smith made that poor fucking decision, that bitch move that I don't think he could ever live down. And that's coming from someone who's such a big fan of his. Hugely disappointed, but when he slapped Chris live at the Oscars on stage. And Chris Rock's live taping of his comedy special was just so highly anticipated, because it was the first time that folks knew that they were going to hear his side of that story. Then after that, the roast of Tom Brady, which was amazing, that was also shot and streamed live. And I think that gives like another level of edginess, or like an added layer or dimension of excitement to a comedy special. It's kind of like marrying being actually in the room when you go watch comedy live, like at a club or a theater, with the benefit of knowing that you're going to see very worked out, polished material. So I definitely like that Netflix is doing this. And the backstory of it, for Rogan specifically, which if you're a fan of his podcast, you may have heard, and I'll just paraphrase, is that his manager calls him and says that Netflix wants to offer him a live comedy special instead of, you know, like the usual taped versions, taped and edited and highly polished versions. And he immediately declined it. The way he tells on the pod, he was like driving home, and then starts having like internal dialogue with himself and asking himself, why'd you just deny that so quickly? And he came to the conclusion that he was just scared. He was like, I don't want to do that shit. That's like so much more pressure. And his knee-jerk reaction was, again, just to decline it and say no. And then he winds up calling his manager back either that same night or the next morning and saying that he's going to think about it for a day or two, so don't tell them no just yet. And then ultimately he decided to do it because of the fact that he was afraid of it. So he wanted to take it on head on, you know, face that fear, conquer his inner bitch, as is a motto of his. So practicing what he preaches, essentially, which I thought was pretty dope. And as much of a D-rider as I am of Rogan and his podcast, and, you know, being the inspiration behind myself doing this podcast, I've never considered him one of my favorite comedians. But that said, this is probably his best special to date. And it's fun for me, as just such a big podcast fan, to see how his personality from the pod, and even some of his thoughts and insights shared on there, translate into the medium of stand-up comedy. Just from a creative perspective, that's interesting to me. And here are a few of the bits that I thought were pretty funny. He, of course, has a few bits on aliens, and he's speaking to the criticism of, you know, if aliens do exist, why doesn't a spaceship just pull up above the White House? You know, like the iconic image that we see from the Independence Day movie poster type of thing. And he's like, when you go fishing, do you look for the president of the lake? It's like, no, you just pick them up by their lips and you take pictures with them and you drop them back in. The fishers are like, what the fuck was that? Can you imagine being a fish in that environment, you know, just swimming around, going about your day? Something just rips you out of your environment by your lips, flashes lights at you that you don't even know what the fuck that it is, takes pictures of you, drops you back in, and you're trying to like tell your fish friends about that experience. And his point is that that's what aliens would do to us. He was like, if he was an alien, he'd take a guy that's in the middle of a forest in Arkansas and teleport him into space and explain to him how time is just an illusion and humans are a product of evolution meant to only give birth to AI, and then drop him back in the middle of the forest in Arkansas and let him explain that shit to his friends. Which, speaking of aliens, by the way, If it's something that you guys are into, listen to the episode of JRE with Luis Elizondo on it. Parts of it get slightly irritating, but understandable, I guess, with all the stuff that Luis Elizondo said he can't speak to because he's still part of the government, so on and so forth. But the stuff that he did share kind of gives you pause and makes you think. So it's an interesting episode to check out if you're into that kind of shit. Another bit that I appreciated, which was more of like a slight, like a dig, speaking to like the cancellation attempts and stuff like that he went through during the COVID era. And as a fan of the pod, again, speaking objectively, trying to take my bias out of it as much as one can, but as someone that has seen clips of him taken out of context and reported on and blogged on and vlogged on from anyone from just an online hater to, prestigious outlets like CNN, for example. When you have already seen a full episode in its full context or listened to one, and you see the snippets that they take and sometimes paste together, they're just like so clearly hit pieces is all you can call them, and mischaracterizations of things. And it's like, oh, I see what you did there. I see what you're going for. But about that whole era, he mentions this one-off line that, like, this transition that I appreciated, which was that we lost a lot of people during COVID, and most of them are still alive. He also speaks about traveling a lot for comedy, obviously, and for the UFC. And he says how the airport is the perfect place to be high, which is counterintuitive because you think of like drug-sniffing dogs, and you're paranoid because you have to follow procedures and do certain things. But he says it's the absolute perfect place to be high because nobody's gonna notice. Everybody's anxious and on edge and shuffling around for their boarding passes and passports and going through security lines, and nobody's paying attention to you, and everybody's just in this heightened state already. So if you're high and paranoid, you're kind of just like fitting into that mold of what's going on around you. And he adds that in the airport, everybody tells you exactly what the fuck to do every step of the way. From get in line, no, go into this line, get out of that line, sit down, take off your shoes, don't lean back in your chair, so on and so forth. He was like, so it's super easy because you don't have to like keep track of those things. And then he does this act out, which Rogan is actually really good at within his comedies, when he acts out certain bits. But he does this act out of the TSA guy checking him in and just like patting him down while simultaneously asking him like UFC questions, which is pretty funny. I like this line that he said. I forget what he was speaking to, but it may have been just to the like woke culture in general, but how crazy people, like the concept of someone just being crazy, went away like the flu did during COVID. He speaks about one of the articles that tried canceling him for being homophobic. And he mentions like the quote that they used in the actual article. He just criticized them in the sense of, you guys are just fucking lazy. He was like, if you want to take me out of context, I give you a lot of shit to work with, and I've said so much more crazier shit than what they actually used. And the last one I'll share here, just because I really appreciated the analogy, was this whole lesbian chunk that he had, and how guys definitely wouldn't care if they were on a date with a girl for the first time and she told them that, she used to have a girlfriend or was in a long-term relationship with a girl. Prior to that one, that in the guy's mind, it's kind of like, woo, low miles. It's like a barn find, like a 67 Mustang that's under a tarp. But yeah, shout out to Joe. It was a special that I enjoyed. It was the whole shooting and streaming it live thing just made it more of like an event, like must tune in type of thing that I liked, and definitely added something to it. So I would highly recommend it. And you can catch the replay on Netflix. Joe Rogan's comedy special, Burn the Boats. Streaming now on Netflix. Industry Season 1. This is an HBO series that I just stumbled upon. It's about 4 years old, so spoiler alert, I guess. But I am the one that's late to the party here, so take that for what it's worth. Here is the official synopsis. Industry is a British-American television drama series that premiered in 2020. It follows a group of young graduates competing for permanent positions at a prestigious investment bank in London. These young bankers and traders make their way in the financial world in the aftermath of the 2008 collapse. And first and foremost, as we like to do here on the Spun Today podcast, I want to shout out the writers. Because if we don't do it here at Spun Today, who will? The series Industry was created by Mickey Down and Conrad K. They are also the main writers of the vast majority of the episodes, which I've only seen season 1 thus far, but you definitely get a cohesive, consistent feel to it, which now knowing that these two guys that created the show are the vast majority of the writing credits is definitely a testament to that consistency that I've enjoyed. But aside from Mickey Down and Conrad K, you also have Joseph Charlton, Sam H. Freeman, Kate Verghese, Matthew Barry, and Zara Mirza. Shout out to each and every one of those writers that put this show together. Now, this show is interesting to me because it is, one, it's an HBO show. HBO just, when they make a good show, they make a really good show. I mean, the batting average for shows has to be amazing. It's very similar to Succession in style and how it's taking a deep dive into a specific industry and some of the characters within that industry, or at least through the lens of a few specific characters within that industry. So how Succession was more on like a modern media, Fox News-esque type of conglomerate, Industry is all about the world of finance and investment banking, which coming from and being in that world of finance in my 9 to 5 definitely piques my interest. Now, like the synopsis says, there's this young group of recent grads that are going through their like first year apprenticeship, if you will, at a prestigious investment bank called Pierpoint. And it's definitely the type of show that's rooted in its characters. They all have strong and unique personalities. You start getting invested in them right away. The main one for me, which is one of the main characters, at least of the first season so far, is Mihala, which plays Harper Stern. And I've seen her in a couple other things, namely, she played Mahershala Ali's daughter in the movie Leave the World Behind, which I did a breakdown of. She plays Pia in the Black Mirror episode of season 6 called Lock Henry, which was one of my favorite episodes of that season, which I believe I also did a breakdown of. She's a great actress, and she's the lead in this, or one of the main characters in this. And in the first season, you see this young group of kids that just graduated. You know, this is their first job. They have this at this really prestigious place. They're wide-eyed and green and idealistic in some senses, and get thrown into this environment where it's a bit of a culture shock, but expected on some levels, and it's where they want to be. So they're trying to assimilate as fast and as quickly as possible. But this environment where they're being sent on salad runs instead of doing actual work, and being yelled at and cursed at by traders and undermined, and trying to deal with the office politics of seasoned folks that are already there, trying to figure out where they fit in the grand scheme of things, while also maneuvering to be seen enough to be considered, because they're all aiming to get these permanent positions, to get hired permanently after their first year. And only a third of them will be. And they're trying to figure all this out, and for some of them, it becomes all-encompassing. You see the different approaches that each of them take, where some of them get backstabby right away. Some of them put their health at danger by just like popping speed to stay awake and, you know, complete more work and do more reports and to try to shine that way. One dude that pretty much was just hopped up on like speed and drugs to stay awake, like energy drinks, and would literally sleep at the office so he could be the first one there and the last one there. and just trying to do every single thing he could to get ahead. He winds up dying at the office. Then you have a different approach of someone, for example, like Gus Saki, played by David Johnson, does a phenomenal job as well. He has more of a laid back kind of, he comes from money, he feels like he belongs there, he's smarter than everybody else, more of a laid back approach to the whole thing. You have a character like Robert Spearing, which is played by Harry Lawty, who's more of the traditional, I guess, palm pressing and chin wagging with the clients type of guy, and, you know, take him out, wine him and dine him, just do a shitload of drugs, you know, like party drugs, and, you know, that's like his whole scene. You have Yasmin, who is played by Marissa Abela, who also comes from money, but wants to make her own way, but it's kind of seen like the little princess that thinks that things should go her way, or is just like used to things going her way. So she gets her character gets a lot of friction within the dynamics of her relationship based on that. Her like mentor, or like not really mentor, but like the lead on the desk that she's on is Kenny Kilbane, who's played by Connor McNeil, and he's just like a misogynistic asshole and treats you like shit. Harper Stern's character, the lead on her desk, is Eric Tao, played by Ken Lung. He finds out kind of like a secret about her that he leverages to gain her loyalty, essentially. But he's a pretty interesting character so far. The show, it's well written, very engaging, entertaining, especially if you're into the finance world. And it's very heavy on the drugs and sex. It's a Euphoria-esque in that way. And I've never seen the show Euphoria, but its reputation precedes it. I would say probably exaggeratedly so, but definitely heavy on drugs and sex. And all the characters are fucking each other and doing drugs, and you definitely get a lot of that. Which helps, I would say, from a creative perspective, just in adding to the tension and the dynamic of the different relationships throughout the show and how folks like interconnect. Yeah, it's a dope watch, and I definitely recommend it. I'll definitely keep you guys posted once I watch all the remaining seasons, but that is my little recap and review of Industry Season 1, streaming now on HBO Max. Check it out. The current political state here in America. As the presidential elections get closer and closer, I am recording this as of September of 2024. Just wanted to touch on and reflect on a few of the high-level things that have been going on as of late. Starting with the Kamala Harris and Trumpito debate. Well, actually taking a quick step back, because I don't think I ever even spoke about here on the podcast about how Kamala Harris is now the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. Joe Biden finally stepped down, and it's being characterized by one side, or the right side, I would say, as, well, not necessarily right, because I hear similar things from folks on the left as well, but it's being characterized by a side as essentially a presidential coup by the Democratic Party to take out its sitting president and put in someone who they wanted to put in, which was VP Kamala Harris. And it's being presented by another side as this noble, great leader in Joe Biden that's wise beyond his, I want to say years, but I mean, he's already very up there, right? So I would say this, wise, selfless, lifelong politician who has always said that he was never going to not run for a second term, but decided for the betterment of the country to step down. And he did this great, noble thing for the country to put Kamala in place and have a better chance at defeating former President Donald Trump. I personally don't think it's either one of those two extremes. I think it was a combination of the pressure that Biden felt and more so the folks around him, because I do think to some extent he's kind of checked out, whether from the decades and decades of political service or whether it's from cognitive decline or a combination of both. I think it's something that he begrudgingly did. And I also don't think it was just a a straight up, coup takeover of him. They put him in a dark room and told him, you're not gonna be president anymore, buddy. I don't think it's that either. So it's like somewhere in between. But anyway, Kamala is now the nominee for president of the United States, and she had a debate with former President Donald Trump. And Kamala did to Trump what Trump did to Biden in their prior debate. How horrible and old and, oh fuck, this is who we have running on the Democratic ticket, Joe Biden came off after that debate with Donald Trump. That realization moment, that moment of reckoning, if you will, I feel that that's what everybody on the right felt after Kamala just demolished Trump in that debate. And what's crazy is that, you know how like in MMA or boxing, like once like a fighter that is undefeated, once he finally loses, other fighters are able to like watch that tape and figure out the game plan that worked to defeat that fighter. Kamala did that to Trump. I feel that now anybody debates Trump, whether they actually do debate again, which is up in the air, because I think CNN wants to do it in October, and Kamala already said yes, Trump already said no, because it's, early voting would have already started. So he wants to do it sooner, which, I mean, we're already towards the end of September. So it's like, that's essentially just saying no, because I think he took such a large L. So that's like a strategic move to like not debate again from his perspective. But Kamala exposed how to beat Trump in a debate. How, he did it with Hillary, he did it with Biden, although Biden like held his own like in the first time around. But he just, speaks over people, lies his ass off, loudest guy in the room, seems like he's right even though he's not. She turned all that on its head with a brilliant strategy of just baiting him time and time again throughout the debate into being the gross narcissist that he is. He couldn't help himself but just constantly put his foot in his mouth time and time again, and she was just like masterfully baiting him into going towards speaking about trivial things like the size of his rallies and how big they are compared to hers, instead of speaking, while he had an opportunity to speak about the issues at the border with millions of people pouring in, which is obviously like a known issue, known win from a debate perspective for the Republicans. He went away from that because she baited him into speaking about the size of his crowds. So I feel like taking that approach with Trump for any candidate moving forward, like that's how you win the debate. Now, me personally, I'm not the biggest Kamala fan. Early on, like the Democratic primaries, when we elected Hillary, I kind of liked her, but I was more of a Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang. I was leaning more in that direction. But I don't feel the confidence in her that I feel I should after being VP for 4 years. And her VP pick, which was Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, doesn't add any degree of confidence to the ticket, in my opinion, either. Similar to how the JD Vance pick for Trump, I feel like that didn't move the needle at all on his side. Not that VPs generally do, but I feel like they should, right? We've also had more potential assassination attempts on Trump, which is scary. It's not something that any rational person wants. There was that one guy with like an AK-4 or some sort of a AR assault rifle that was found near a golf course that Trump was at and fled the scene. They caught him, arrested him. He was something like 300 or 400 yards away from where Trump was. Then there was another one that I just recently today heard of, which was some sort of explosives found near where Trump was or where he was going to be or something like that. That's just fucking craziness, right? And I definitely do not want a President Harris if it's directly or indirectly a consequence of some shadowy powers that be assassinating the competition. Now, where I'm at personally is that I am a lifelong New York Democrat that feels that he does not have a political home. Growing up, even though I was too young to vote, probably the earliest president that I remember would be Bill Clinton. in retrospect, still, hindsight being 2020, now obviously knowing more from life experiences and things like that, that no president at all, or I would even deem to say politicians in general, are squeaky clean, perfect, get everything right across the board. But there was a general, and again, coming from New York blue bubble that we live in, there was a general, the good guy won, the Democrat won. After that, after 8 years of Bush, which again, I was too young to vote for, or an election to vote in, that Bush-Cheney presidency that got us into the decades-long war on terror and poor decisions of going into Iraq and just being straight up war hawks and sending personal friends of mine straight out of high school into war and possibly to their deaths. It was like, I'm definitely not on the side of those guys. And then President Obama, who I was proud and happy and hopeful to vote for, which ultimately I believe was the right decision for the country at the time, but definitely was not without his faults. To then the quote-unquote corrective pendulum swinging back to the right, seemingly as a response to the first black president, giving us President Trump, which I think was a symptom of also the Democratic Party just becoming more and more of the establishment, more and more of the status quo. All that war hawk, conservative, controlling of free speech, et cetera, that we didn't like about the Bush and Cheney era, we're now seeing reflected in certain parts of the Democratic Party. And Trump is a result of us getting that. Now it's like the Democratic Party, we are pro all these wars and feeding the military-industrial complex and pro big pharma and wanting to curb free speech. And it's like, shit just feels backwards now. We're not completely backwards, because there's a lot of that shit on the right side, mainly, but things just feel off. They feel wrong. And speaking specifically about the Ukraine and Russia war, or what's going on in Gaza, which if you witnessing what's going on now in Gaza, it is absolutely reprehensible what happened in October, the terrorist attack that happened in Israel in October of last year, that led to what we're currently seeing now. Definitely no condoning it. Our actions in America over the decades, as well as Israel's, but just speaking about America specifically in, playing world police, or not playing, being world police, toppling over and putting in place pro-Western governments throughout the Middle East, funding resistance movements that ultimately lead to some of those, not all, some of those irreprehensible, terrorist, indefensible acts of terrorist organizations. If we just ignore our part of, or our influence at the very least, but our part in that whole thing, we're just being willfully ignorant and are never going to change anything. Nothing's going to change. Nothing has changed. Since I was a little kid, you always hear, to quote Tupac, there's war on the streets and war in the Middle East. Or, peace in the Middle East. Like, that shit's been forever. But I say that to say that if you witness what's going on in Gaza and think it's anything less than a genocide, you're burying your head in the sand. And if you want to play semantics with the word genocide, here's my biggest beef of the whole thing. If you want to play semantics, it's not technically a genocide, this, that, the other, whatever. The argument that I hear most from folks on the right and left that are just want to paint everything black and white, good side and bad side, and completely ignore the gray, which is the vast majority of this Venn diagram of this mosaic of what's going on over there. I would say it's like 99% gray, like 0.5% white, 0.5% black. Folks just want to paint the whole shit black and white. The argument that gets to me most that I hear is, well, if technically you compare the stats of militant deaths versus civilian deaths, it's not dissimilar than any other war that has been fought throughout history. To me, I hear that, and I don't take that argument forward and think or say, oh, okay, so it's okay then. So continue, business as usual. No, it's the exact opposite of that. It's, oh shit, every single other war that we've ever fought in history, the history of the fucking world, we've been wrong on. And not we, just America, just like we as a human species, we're doing this shit all wrong. That shouldn't give you, it should give you pause. It shouldn't give you reason to continue business as usual. But I digress. And all that, again, just to bring it back to politics here in America, I think it's a testament of being given the illusion of choice. Decade after decade, election after election, here in America, we have two candidates, Democrat or the Republican. Two candidates that truly have a shot in winning, with the third-party candidates just being garnishes that are sprinkled around the election plate. And I do, in my heart of hearts, believe that politics, as idealistic as it sounds, is supposed to be you voting your interest, you voting your ideals, you voting your morals, you voting to and for whatever issue or issues impact you most and that you care about most. And that translating into candidates that mirror those beliefs in the legislation that they champion, which ultimately translates into the society that we want to see and live in. And I don't believe we'll ever achieve that while we just have a good enough pseudo version of our ideals being shoehorned into two choices. So in terms of my vote come November, I don't know who's getting it yet, I'll be honest. Although I live in New York, which is going to go Democrat anyway, but I'm not one of those, I don't believe that means that your vote doesn't matter person. But I am definitely resigning myself to voting third party. And no, I do not believe that it's throwing away a vote. I don't think of voting as gambling with the purpose of betting on the horse that you think is going to win. That's the wrong mentality, I believe. I also believe that the thought of if you vote third party, it's benefiting one side or the other, so you're technically voting for the other side. I believe that's very short-term thinking and may be true short-term, but I believe that right or wrong, voting for a third party long-term and building up that momentum is signaling to the fucked up political system that we're in, which breeds all these geopolitical situations that we're in, not to mention all the negative things going on here at home. But I believe that it's signaling to that fucked up political system that it needs to finally begin changing, begin shifting toward multiple parties that are not just candidate versions of garnishes on the ballot, but into viable choices. And that political state is what I would want to hand down to my kids and future generations. And that's where I'm at with it, folks. That's where I'm at with the current political state here in America. In this episode's installment of Goats Doing Goat Shit, we have an unprecedented, first time ever, official revocation of a previously bestowed Goats Doing Goat Shit highest Spun Today honor, which was once upon a time, during episode 243 of the podcast to be exact, presented to Sean P. Diddy Combs, aka the Diddler. Now, for those who don't know, the Spun Today Goats Doing Goat Shit segment is to highlight folks who are goats, aka greatest of all time. If you break GOAT up into an acronym, shout out to LL Cool J for coining the term. But I like to highlight goats within their own respective lanes, going above and beyond and doing some goat shit. Something that they otherwise or necessarily didn't have to do for any type of personal gain or for just some major accomplishment that they achieved. And I previously gave Diddy the honor in what seemed at the time as like an altruistic type of thing, in that he gave back the publishing rights to prior bad boy artists. Now, Diddy has a storied career with Bad Boy Records, establishing it breaking artists like Mace and Biggie, Faith, Lil' Kim, and so many others. The Lox, and a lot of artists, including the Lox, Mace, all had beef with Diddy in terms when it came around to like business dealings. He's always been known as a ruthless businessman, which in part, I'm sure, got him to building his billion-dollar empire. But he took advantage of artists similar to the environment, the best practices at the time, or business as usual at the time, of just raping artists for their royalties, signing their rights away. You take ownership of the things that they created, aka the publishing, which is a part of that. But back in episode 243, you can go back and listen. I broke down how dope it was that he actually, instead of still holding on to those rights, gave it back to his artists. And I kind of mentioned in that episode how that seemed like a bit of maybe a guilty conscience, or trying to clean up his persona for whatever reason, which fast forward to now, we know why. At least in part. And also with everything that's going on right now between Jay-Z and Dame Dash, and how Dame Dash put his third ownership of Rockefeller Records, of the publishing of Jay-Z's first album, Reasonable Doubt. He put it up for sale, and Jay-Z highlighted a rule within the publishing rights world of something to the effect of that after 35 years, the ownership goes back to the artist anyway. I wonder how much of that publishing that Diddy originally gave back was going back to the artist anyway, soon, since this was, all their heydays were like back in the 90s. So that's a whole nother layer to him trying to portray himself as doing something that's like not as big of a deal as it was, or at least as I took it to be. But aside from all that, after the Cassie video comes out, where he's literally beating the crap out of her in a public hotel hallway, and you take that egregious act and then contemplate if that's what he does in public with cameras around, imagine what he does in the privacy of his own home, or when he thinks he's not being recorded. And then you add all the shit that's coming out now with the freak off and the alleged pimping out of Justin Bieber, and hundreds and hundreds of cameras, hidden cameras in different rooms at these places where he would throw his houses where he would throw these parties. And now he's like the Jeffrey Epstein of the hip hop world, allegedly, and apparently single-handedly responsible for a large P&L line item related to baby oil in Johnson & Johnson's financial reporting. Just all that combined just sheds that much more light on the type of person Diddy was and is. And although I know this will hurt more than any jail sentence or financial burdens that are coming his way, but I officially revoke the Spun Today Goats Doing Goat Shit honor that was previously awarded. And that is this episode segment of Goats Doing Goat Shit. And that, folks, was episode 270 of the Spun Today podcast. Thank each and every one of you for taking the time to listen to this episode. I really appreciate it. I said it in the intro and I'll say it again. Your support means a ton. I really appreciate each and every one of you that take the time to listen, to like, share, subscribe. Check out the YouTube page for individual clips, as well as my Instagram for additional content, at Spun Today on everything. And I just wanted to tell you guys about a few more ways that you can help support this podcast if you so choose. I have some interesting merch to tell you guys about, as well as some coupons and discounts from my affiliates that I wanted to tell you guys about. So stick around for a couple more minutes. And if it's something that you're in the market for, why not take a discount on it? Here are a few ways you can help support the podcast, and I'll check you guys out next time. Peace. What's up, folks? Tony here. I hope you're enjoying the Spun Today podcast as much as I enjoy producing it for you. Here are a few ways you can help support the show. You can support the Spun Today podcast financially by going to spuntoday.com/support. There you will find a couple different ways that you can do just that. some of which will actually not even cost you a dime, such as using my Amazon affiliate link. When you go to spuntoday.com/support, you'll see my affiliate link to Amazon. Click on it and it will take you to Amazon's website, where you can do your shopping like normal. This will not cost you anything extra, but Amazon will pay me for driving traffic to their website. If you'd like to support the podcast more directly, you can do so by becoming a patron at spuntoday.com/support. You'll also find my Patreon link. This is where creators such as myself can be paid directly by patrons like you. You can either make a one-time donation or schedule recurring donations if you so choose. There are also different tiers of support, and depending on which you decide to go with, you'll also receive some perks in return, such as early access to content, free digital copies of my books, free bookmarks, etc. That is, again, by supporting via my Patreon link, available at spuntoday.com/support. Similar to Patreon, at that same location, you'll also find my Ko-fi link as well as my Buy Me a Coffee link. They work very similar to Patreon and are different ways that you can help support the show financially. And last but certainly not least, you have the good old-fashioned PayPal donation button. Any which way that you choose to support is greatly appreciated. It all helps me do more of what I love, which is writing and podcasting. Again, go to spuntoday.com/support. You can also support the Spun Today podcast by rating and reviewing the show wherever it is that you're listening to this episode. I'd really appreciate it because it really does help. Also, follow me on all socials. At Spun Today on X, formerly known as Twitter. At Spun Today on Instagram. And at Spun Today on YouTube, where you'll not only find full-length episodes of the podcast, but also chopped up clips and additional content. And of course, you can follow the Facebook page at facebook.com/spuntoday. Another way you can help support the Spun Today podcast and also upgrade that stale wardrobe of yours is by going to spuntoday.com/support and clicking on the banner for Stitch Fix. Once you do, you'll enjoy a $25 discount to your first purchase. And the way Stitch Fix works is pretty cool. I use it and I've never been disappointed. You'll set up a profile. You'll put in all the sizes for your clothes, as well as all the different brands and types of clothes that you like to wear. It's really simple and intuitive to set up. They'll show you pictures and pretty much give you a thumbs up or thumbs down option on if you would wear something or not. And you get to select all the brands that you already are used to wearing. With this information, there are thousands of passionate, trend-setting stylists will curate a Stitch Fix box for you. They'll send you 5 items that you get to preview before they mail it to you, and you'll get to select based on the image if you like it or not. If not, they'll replace it with something else, and if so, they'll mail it to you absolutely for free. You can try everything on, and you have a few days to send everything back or keep the stuff that you want to keep. Then you can use that $25 credit that I mentioned towards your purchase of those items. Again, to freshen up your wardrobe and also support the Spun Today podcast, go to spuntoday.com/support and click on my affiliate link banner for Stitch Fix and enjoy your $25 credit. Do you want to start your own podcast? Have a great show idea that you want to get out into the masses but don't know quite how to get it from your head out into the world? Well, here's how. Use the podcast host Libsyn. That's who I use to bring the Spun Today podcast to you. And now you can use them the same way. Using the promo code SPUN, S-P-U-N, you can open up your Libsyn account today and get 2 months of free podcast hosting. Here's how it works. Once you record your show, you upload it to your Libsyn account, where you can fill in your episode notes, upload your podcast art, and schedule when you want your episodes to release. Once you do that, Libsyn will take care of the rest. They'll distribute your show to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and all the other podcatchers that you choose, instantaneously and seamlessly. Again, go to libsyn.com and use the promo code SPUN, S-P-U-N, to get 2 months free. Or use the affiliate link that's in the episode notes. Again, that's libsyn.com, promo code SPUN. Take that great podcast idea from out of your head and put it out into the world. And as always, folks, substitute the mysticism with hard work and start taking steps in the general direction of your dreams. Thanks for listening. I love you, Aiden.
I love you, Daddy.
I love you, Grayson.
I love you, Daddy.